The sound of tires crunching gravel broke the evening's stillness as Derek Monroe, a composed 48-year-old with a quiet authority and a reputation for integrity, guided his black sedan onto Maplewood Drive. He was wrapping up a long, productive day spent meeting with community leaders in Greensboro, North Carolina. His mind wandered to the thought of his wife's signature lasagna waiting at home. But then, a flash of blue and red lights erupted in his rearview mirror, cutting through the night like a warning siren. Derek's hands instinctively tightened on the steering wheel. He glanced at the speedometer, 29 and a 35. No traffic violations, no broken lights. Yet the patrol car's siren wailed insistently. "Stay calm," he muttered to himself, signaling and easing onto the shoulder. Derek knew the drill. Hands visible, movements slow, demeanor polite. It wasn't about guilt or innocence. It was about survival. A flashlight beam cut through the dark, its glare bouncing off his dashboard. A young officer, his face shadowed by the brim of his hat, approached briskly. Another officer hung back by the patrol car's rear, hand resting on his holstered sidearm. "You in a hurry tonight?" The first cop barked, suspicion heavy in his tone. "No, sir," Derek replied, calm but clear. "Just heading home." The flashlight lingered on Derek's face a moment too long before darting down to his lap, then the center console. License and registration. Derek narrated every move as he reached for the glove box. "I'm getting the registration now. My license is in my wallet. I'll grab it after this." The officer's silence was thick with distrust. "You know why I pulled you over?" Before Derek could answer, the cop continued. "You were swerving into the other lane." "With all due respect, sir, I wasn't. My dash cam will confirm that." A smirk curled the officer's lips. "Dash cam, huh? We'll be taking that. Step out of the vehicle." Derek blinked. The escalation was fast, too fast. "Officer, is there a problem?" "I'm cooperating." The cop's jaw tightened. "I said step out." Derek's stomach twisted, but he obeyed, moving slowly with hands raised. The second officer rushed in, yanking his arm roughly. "Is this necessary?" Derek asked, his voice even but edged with disbelief. "Resisting, huh?" The first cop sneered, snapping cold metal cuffs around his wrists. As they shoved him into the squad car, Derek caught glimpses of neighbors peeking through drawn blinds, porch lights glowing behind them. Silent spectators. No one stepped forward. They had no idea who he was. The patrol car vibrated as it rolled down the suburban street. Derek sat stiffly in the back seat, the cityscape blurring past his window. The two officers up front, Officer Carson and Officer Mills, chatted idly, as though they hadn't just handcuffed an innocent man. "Late-night drug run," Carson quipped, catching Derek's eyes in the mirror. "Or just a guy who thinks he's smarter than us," Mills added with a chuckle. Derek didn't flinch. "I'm just trying to get home." They snorted, dismissing him. At the precinct, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Carson unlocked Derek's cuffs with a smug flick. "Welcome to our little slice of heaven," he sneered. "You'll be here a while." "Am I being charged?" Derek asked, calm but firm. "We'll let you know," Mills replied, leading him to a holding cell. The metal door clanged shut, its echo lingering in the cold space. Derek sat down, his mind racing. He wasn't angry. Not yet. He was calculating. This wasn't just profiling, it was systemic. And ironically, it was his system. Because Derek Monroe wasn't just any man. He was the new chief of police. But they didn't know that. Not yet. Hours crawled by. Officers drifted in and out of the precinct, tossing curious glances at Derek through the bars. None seemed to recognize him. Understandable. He'd only taken the position 3 weeks ago. Finally, footsteps approached. A tall woman in a crisp uniform, her badge gleaming. Lieutenant Harper. Her aura of command filled the space as she scanned Derek, then the paperwork in her hand. "What's going on here?" she asked. "Reckless driving," Carson answered flatly. "And resisting arrest." Harper raised a brow. "Where's the dash cam footage?" Mills shrugged. "We haven't reviewed it yet." Her jaw clenched. "Then review it. Now." "And you," she pointed at Carson, "in my office." The officers scattered. Within an hour, Harper returned to the holding cell. Her face was stone, but there was something else, irritation. "We reviewed the footage," she said. "You weren't swerving. You weren't resisting. None of what they reported is accurate." Derek nodded slightly. "Didn't think it would be. I'm releasing you immediately," she continued, unlocking the door. "But I'd like to speak privately." In her office, Harper studied him. "You kept your cool better than most would. I can't help but wonder, who are you really?" Derek offered a slight smile. "I'm the man responsible for cleaning up this department." She blinked. "You're the chief?" "Yes." Silence filled the space before Harper muttered, "They're going to regret this." News spread fast. The courtroom was packed for the hearing. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but the courthouse steps buzzed with reporters. Inside, Derek sat calmly at the defense table beside his lawyer, Marissa Chun, known for dismantling false charges with surgical precision. Across the room, Carson and Mills sat rigid, their department-appointed attorney flipping through papers with increasing anxiety. The prosecutor opened the session with the usual script: reckless driving, resisting arrest, but Marissa didn't even blink. "Your Honor," she began when it was her turn, "the accusations against my client are a textbook example of racial profiling and an abuse of power. We have dashcam and bodycam footage that contradicts every statement made by Officers Carson and Mills." She played the footage. The courtroom fell silent as the video played. Derek's car moving steadily within his lane, his speed legal, his behavior calm. The officer's aggressive approach. Carson muttering, "Another one of them causing trouble." Mills chuckle in response. Figures. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The judge's gavel slammed down. "Order." When Derek stood to speak, the room was so quiet you could hear the creak of the wooden floorboards. "My name is Derek Monroe," he announced, "and I'm the chief of police for this city." A collective gasp spread through the courtroom. "I took this role to create a culture of fairness and accountability. What you witnessed today, this is what we must eradicate." The fallout was immediate. Officers Carson and Mills were suspended pending investigation. Public outrage surged as the footage hit local news. Protesters gathered outside the courthouse, demanding reform. Inside the department, Derek didn't hesitate. He implemented sweeping changes: mandatory bias training, stricter oversight, and an anonymous reporting system for misconduct. At a community town hall weeks later, a young man stood to speak. "What happened to you, Chief?" "That could have been me," he said, voice cracking. Derek's throat tightened. "That's why I'm here," he replied. "And that's why this fight isn't over." The courtroom was just the beginning. This was the reckoning they never saw coming. And Derek Monroe, he was ready for it.